The last time I saw my brother acting normal was around 6 in the evening near Pactola Lake in Black Hills National Forest. We were fishing for trout from the shoreline and arguing over some stupid truck he wanted to buy. That was Wyatt. He always had something to say. Even when he was exhausted, he kept talking nonsense, laughing to himself, or singing old country songs under his breath. That's why what happened afterward messed me up for years. We'd camped far away from the tourist areas because Wyatt hated hearing people nearby. We hiked almost 2 hours deep into the woods before finding a clearing near the water. The place looked beautiful during the day, but once night came, everything changed. The forest started feeling closed in. I don't know how else to explain it. The trees suddenly felt too close together and the air felt heavy. Around 10 that night, we heard something walking near camp. I thought it was an elk. The footsteps were slow and heavy. Branches snapped a few yards from us while Wyatt grabbed the flashlight and pointed it toward the trees as I fed wood into the fire. That's when we noticed the smell. It was awful. Like wet animal fur, hot garbage, and rotting meat mixed together, strong enough to make my eyes water. Wyatt muttered, "Something died out there." Then we heard a whistle. I still have trouble sleeping when I think about that sound. It wasn't a bird. It sounded human, but wrong somehow, like something trying to imitate a whistle without understanding how to do it properly. It came from the trees and slowly moved around us. Wyatt set the flashlight down and said he was going to check it out because he thought maybe another camper was messing with us. I told him not to go, but he was already walking into the pines. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I shouted his name several times and got nothing back. I stayed by the fire trying to convince myself he was screwing with me. Then I heard something moving behind me. I spun around with the flashlight and caught a massive shape crossing between the trees. I didn't see the full body at first. I saw the legs, longer than any person's should have been. Then the torso. The thing leaned forward while it moved, but it was still enormous. Dark, tangled hair covered almost its entire body, though patches around the eyes and mouth were bare. The skin looked gray and wrinkled under the light. Its eyes reflected back at me like an animal standing on the side of a highway at night. It stopped moving and stared at me. I froze too. Running didn't even cross my mind. Fear locked my body in place. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. The thing breathed heavily, and every time it exhaled, I caught that rotten smell drifting through the trees again. Then I heard Wyatt, but he didn't sound right. He was crying. The sound came from somewhere behind the creature. I heard him say my name once, quietly, shaking like he was freezing. The creature turned its head slightly toward the sound, and that's when something hit me hard in the gut. It knew exactly where he was. It had him somewhere behind those trees. I grabbed a burning branch from the fire and started screaming like an idiot, not because I thought it would help, but because I felt like if I didn't do something right then, my brother was never coming back. The creature slowly backed away into the trees. Then it disappeared into the dark. I found Wyatt about 20 minutes later near a rocky slope. He was sitting on the ground hugging his legs. There was mud in his hair and dried blood along his neck like something had scraped him. I asked him what happened. He didn't answer. When I tried helping him stand up, his legs shook so badly he almost collapsed. We packed up camp and drove back to Rapid City without speaking. Wyatt stared out the window the entire drive home. He looked hollow. After that night, he stopped going into the woods, stopped fishing, stopped hunting. My brother, the guy who practically lived outdoors since he was 12, never stepped foot into another forest again. I was living alone in a rented cabin west of Black Hills National Forest when this happened. I'd gone out there to work cutting timber during the fall and save some money. The cabin was old, poorly insulated, and had a generator that only worked when it felt like it, but it was far from everything, and I liked that. After a divorce, a man starts looking for silence, even if he doesn't admit it. The first few weeks were normal. I'd see deer near the road, hear coyotes at night, and once in a while I'd find bear tracks near the shed. Nothing unusual for that area. The problem started with the noises. At first they weren't loud. They sounded far away. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Like somebody hitting wood out in the trees. I heard them almost every night after midnight. Sometimes they lasted a few seconds, sometimes several minutes. I figured it was hunters at first, but nobody hunted that deep in the woods during that season, especially not at night. Then, the whistles started. That was worse. They came from the forest behind the cabin, short, uneven whistles spaced apart from each other. One night, I even heard one right outside the kitchen window while I was washing dishes. I remember dropping a glass from the shock. I went outside with a flashlight and didn't see anything. But the smell stayed there. A wet, rotten smell, like soaked fur mixed with old meat, the kind of smell that sticks in your nose even after you go back inside. 2 nights later, I found something around the cabin. Tracks. Not bear tracks. They were huge and human-shaped, pressed deep into the wet mud. Several circled the cabin, and others led right up to my bedroom window. I slept with my rifle that night. Around 3 in the morning, a sound on the roof woke me. Footsteps. Slow ones. The wood creaked above me while something walked across the cabin roof. Dust drifted down from the ceiling with every step. I stayed frozen in bed, listening to it move back and forth overhead. Then I heard breathing. Very close. So close it sounded like it was coming from right outside my window. I grabbed the rifle and barely pulled the curtain aside. I still wish I hadn't looked. There was a face pressed against the glass. Huge. Dark hair covered most of its head except around the eyes and mouth. Its nose was broad and wet, and its eyes looked old and exhausted. It stared straight at me without blinking. The thing was so tall it had to lean down to look inside. I jerked back and pointed the rifle at the window. When I looked again, it was gone. Then something slammed into the outside wall of the cabin. The whole place shook. Then another hit, and another. It sounded like the thing was circling me. I could hear footsteps outside, breathing, branches snapping in the dark. I stayed awake until sunrise. When daylight came, I went outside with the rifle in my hands. There were huge marks scraped into the wood siding and mud smeared across the windows. Behind the cabin, I found something worse. A dead deer hanging between 2 trees. Its stomach had been torn open and half its head was missing. Flies covered the carcass. The smell was unbearable. I packed everything that same afternoon and left. The old man asked me why I was quitting the job so suddenly. I didn't tell him the truth because I thought he'd laugh at me. I just said I kept hearing animals too close to the cabin at night. The old man looked at me strangely after I said that. Then he spit tobacco onto the ground and said, "Then it found you too." I never liked talking about this because I know how it sounds. People hear Black Hills and immediately think of made-up stories, drunk tourists, or guys trying to get attention. I was a seasonal forest ranger back then, 27 years old, and I'd been working the trails near Black Hills National Forest for almost 8 months. I knew that forest better than my own hometown. I knew where the ground turned swampy, where the elk came down at sunrise, even which areas the coyotes avoided. There are places out there where the forest gets too quiet. You feel it in your chest before anything else. The one who disappeared was Royce. Big guy, reddish beard, always making noise about something. If things got quiet, he'd fill the silence himself. We'd gone out early that morning to check an area where a couple hikers had reported a bear standing on 2 legs. Nobody really believed them, but we got sent anyway because they'd found a deer torn open near a creek. It hadn't been bitten. Its ribs looked like something had pulled them apart with raw force. The air smelled wrong that morning, not like wet dirt or pine. It was sour and hot, like soaked clothes left inside a truck for weeks. Royce noticed it too. I remember because he said, "Smells like a dead demon." We laughed a little and kept walking. We found tracks in the mud not long after. They didn't look like bear tracks. They were too long, 5 clear toes, the heel pressed deep into the ground like something unbelievably heavy had walked through there. Royce started taking pictures while I tried convincing myself the rain had distorted them. Then we heard a loud crack somewhere ahead of us, like a huge log slamming into another tree. Royce looked toward the pines and said he was going to check farther up. I watched him disappear behind a patch of dark rocks. He was gone only a few minutes. I stayed behind messing with the GPS because the signal kept cutting out. Then I heard breathing in the trees. Human breathing. Fast. Panicked. Royce stumbled back out of the woods looking drained white, like all the blood had left his body. I asked him what happened and he wouldn't even look at me. He just kept walking fast toward me. That's when I noticed mud all over his back, like he'd fallen or something had shoved him to the ground. I asked him again what the hell he saw. He didn't answer. And that scared me more than anything, because Royce never shut up. We started heading back, but something was moving alongside us through the trees. I could hear thick branches snapping off to our right, keeping pace with us. At one point I caught movement between the trunks and thought it was a shadow, until I saw eyes staring at us from the dark. Its head appeared for maybe a second behind a massive pine. I still dream about it. The hair was long in some places and matted down in others like it was wet or caked with filth, black with patches of gray through it. The face looked disturbingly human around the nose and mouth. And the eyes, those eyes looked like it understood perfectly that we knew it was there. It had to be over 8 feet tall. Its shoulders looked enormous even behind the tree. And the smell coming off it was unbearable. Rotting meat, wet fur, feces, and something metallic like old blood. Royce still wouldn't speak. He wouldn't even look toward the trees. Then we heard another crack of wood, much closer this time. That's when we ran. I don't care admitting it. We ran downhill while heavy footsteps pounded behind us. Every step shook the wet ground. When we reached the truck, Royce locked himself inside on the passenger side and started crying. I had never seen a grown man cry like that before. His whole body was shaking. I asked him what he saw back there. He never answered. Not during the drive home, not that night, not ever. 2 weeks later, he quit the job. Last I heard, he moved to Wyoming. I tried forgetting the whole thing, but there's one detail I've never been able to shake. While we were driving out of the forest, Royce glanced into the side mirror and whispered, "It wasn't alone."